Welcome back to Top 5 Repairs. How do you know you got a bad wheel bearing or a bad axle? First, let's start with noise. A bad axle will make a clicking noise when turning left or right, and a bad wheel bearing will not make a clicking noise when turning left or right. Next, when the axle is bad due to a bad bearing, it will make a clunking noise, thumping noise, or knocking noise when accelerating, and a bad wheel bearing will not make that noise. Next, a bad axle can make a popping noise when turning, and a bad wheel bearing will not make a popping noise when turning. Next, let's talk about growling noise. A bad wheel bearing will make a growling noise, a groaning noise, or a rumbling noise, and a bad axle will not make a growling noise, rumbling noise, or a groaning noise. In addition to that, when the wheel bearing is failing, the growling noise, groaning noise, or rumbling noise will start to increase as speed increases. Next, let's talk about vibration. When the axle is failing, you're going to notice vibration when you're driving over 35 miles per hour and up. And when the wheel bearing is failing, you're also going to notice vibration. But this one is going to be different because you can start noticing vibration when you're driving just about 10 miles per hour and up. Next, let's talk about wobbling. When the wheel bearings start to fail, it can cause the wheel to start wobbling at low speed and at high speed, and a bad axle will not cause the wheel to wobble. Instead, you're going to notice vibration. Can a bad axle or a bad wheel bearing prevent the vehicle from moving? And yes, it can. When the axle bearing or the joint part break, it can actually prevent the axle from moving or spinning. And when the wheel bearing is extremely bad, it can actually seize and prevent the wheel from moving. How do you check for a bad wheel bearing? And the answer is simple. All you have to do is lift up the vehicle and place it on jack stand. Next, grab the wheel and rock it at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock position, and next rock it at 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock position. If you notice the wheel is rocking at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock position and at 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock position, that's how you know that wheel bearing is bad. Next, you want to spin the wheel. If you notice noise when spinning the wheel and you hear some sort of growling noise or grinding noise or rumbling noise, that's how you know you're going to have a bad wheel bearing. How do you know you got a bad axle? Well, first, when the dust boot is torn and you notice grease is leaking out of it, that's how you know it is time to replace that axle, because if you don't replace that axle, it is going to allow a lot of dirt and water and mud and rocks to go on the inside, and it is going to ruin that bearing. How do you check for a bad axle? All you have to do is grab it right at the shaft over here, and you want to turn it left and right. There should be little to no movement, and there should be no noise. Next, you want to grab it at the shaft and you want to try to plunge it in and out. Again, there should be little to no movement and no noise. The quickest way to check for a bad wheel bearing is to take the vehicle for a test drive. If you notice the wheel is wobbling and it's making a grinding noise, groaning noise, rumbling noise, or growling noise, that's how you know that wheel bearing is bad. The quickest way to tell if you got a bad axle is to take the vehicle for a test drive. What you want to do is you want to turn left and you want to turn right and left and right again when driving. If you notice a clicking noise or a popping noise, that's how you know the axle is bad. I hope you found that video useful. As always, thank you for watching and subscribe to Top 5 Auto Repairs.